or welcome back to the Writing While Black podcast. Today, we are so excited to be talking with Carolynn Bain, proprietor of Afrori Bookstore in the UK. My name is Angela Riley. I'm your hostess today and author of the 11-book Affirming Self-Love series, available digitally on Amazon. And also on the line is your co-hostess to the mostest, Ayoka B, author of Love at Second Sight, available now in digital and paperback copies. So, Ayoka, before we start talking to Miss Carolynn, is there anything you want to say, add, edit, or adjust to where we are? Get us situated, get us straight?
No, I'm good. Go for it.
All right. So the first question I have is the name. I'm looking at the images online. I love the artwork of the sign over the store. It's so cute. But I want to know about the name. I can see the afro in it, but I'm just curious about the name.
It's not as exciting as you would hope it to be, but maybe it is. I don't know. So I was ready to start the bookshop, and I said to my husband, I need a name. I don't know what we're going to call it. And so he wrote a list of names for me. And the second name was Afrori. He's quite creative. This is his thing. The second name was Afrori. And I went to him and I was like, that's it. It's Afrori, right? Afro origin. And he said, yeah, I knew you were going to pick that one. The rest were padding. So, yeah, so it's Afro origin.
Okay.
And it's actually, there's a similar name in Ghanaian, which is with an O, so Afrori, is quite a common surname in Ghana, but I didn't know that at the time, and I don't have Ghanaian roots. My roots are Jamaican, but yeah, so Afrori Books.
Okay, what African country are Jamaicans connected to? It's not Ghana. There's like some documentation that a lot of Jamaicans have some like direct link to.
It depends, it could be all over, right? So who knows, it depends on your heritage. And I haven't dug back that far, to be honest, because my family goes back into Jamaica for quite a long time.
But there might be some big, huge subconscious connection
maybe
that made that name just speak to you. But it's a beautiful name. Did your husband design the graphics? Is that his? No,
I did that. The one and only time I've ever designed a graphic in my life. So that's definitely God's providence. That was
I love it. Yeah, I love it. I love it.
You got inspired. This was your baby, so it came through.
Yeah, an interesting point though is that the graphic, the image, we think it's pretty sure it's the image, is it's pretty much banned on Meta. So if we try to run an ad and we put the logo on it, then Meta won't let it go through, and they come back several times. We haven't bothered for a long time, to be fair. They come back and say that the ad, whatever the ad is, and we only really advertise books and events, they'll come back and say that the ad contained violence.
Interesting.
Yeah. So one of my friends, as a joke, said, well, it's clearly because those two girls are fighting with sticks.
Yeah.
If you see the image, it's weird to describe this on a podcast, but, for your listeners, if they look at the image, it's strange. But that's my graphic. My graphic, his name.
Beautiful. It's a marriage of the marriage.
Yes.
All right. Yeah. So what was the impetus to start Afrori Books?
Frustration, 100%. I have grown up in the UK all my life. My family have lived in the UK for decades, and my children grew up here, and we just couldn't find books that represented them. And so we used to import books from Canada, from the States, from West Africa, all over the place, just so that my kids could have representation. And then George Floyd was murdered, and friends were calling me and sort of saying, oh, where can I get this book? Do you know where I could find this? What could I, how do I find this? And I just thought, this is ridiculous. And I was actually on a march. I was on a civil rights march with my kids. And I actually was crying because I was just like, why am I marching with my kids? When I went on my first socialist civil rights march, anti-racist march when I was 9 years old, And here I am, I can't do the maths, 40 plus years later, marching with my own children, like, and I just got really upset. And I thought, oh, just what's the point? You know, what's the point of marching? What's the point of crying? What are you actually going to do? And so I thought, okay, fine. What I'll do is I'll put together a collection of books by Black authors for my friends and family. And that was really how it started. It was like, what would my friends and family, how can I make this easier for the people I know? And I had done some work. I was previously an event manager. So I had done some work with a big book wholesaler, the only book wholesaler in the country. I didn't know that at the time. And so I called them and just said, hi, do you want to do a deal? And they were kind of like, don't know. No one's ever asked us to do that before. But they gave me an account manager, and he happened to be the guy that I'd worked with before on a previous project. He liked me. That always wins favors. He thought I was easy to work with before. And so he just liked what I was going to do, and he wanted to help out. So he's like, yeah, let's try this. Let's see if we can make this work. And so I started with 100 books. And I always remember that conversation with him. He said, how many titles are you thinking about? I said, 100, thinking that's a lot. And he was like, 100. Okay. And I didn't know if that meant that was a lot or a little. I had no idea. And so we put 100, kind of 30 non-fiction, 30 fiction, 30 children's. So 10 sort of spare. We put 100 books in the store. And for the first 4, maybe 5 days, my friends and family bought books. And then on the 6th or 7th day, I think it was, I just was, I sat in this little corner in my loft space upstairs. There was no windows, just me in my dark little corner running this little side hustle that I told my husband I was going to do. And I had this order from this guy in Scotland. And that is like literally, I live on the south coast of England. This is the furthest north you can go. And so I went to my kids and was like, do you know this guy? And they were like, no. And I asked, do you know this guy? He's like, no. I was like, a stranger's ordered a book for me. This is bizarre. This is, really weird. And it just blew up. It literally blew up from there. We did a couple of press releases. There was just a massive appetite for what we were doing. We are the only bookshop in the whole of the UK that specializes in Black authors. So there are Black-owned bookshops, but they are diverse. And I often tell people, we are not a diverse bookshop. We only sell books by Black authors from all around the world, but only Black authors. So we often get contacted by people who have Black characters in their book, Black children in their book, and we say, no, thank you.
So if they are not Black, but they have Black characters, you say, no, thank you. Is that what you just said?
Yep.
That's
okay.
The author or illustrator have to be Black. Have to identify as Black.
Yeah.
There are a couple of authors who I would think, you're Black, and they're like, I don't really think of myself as Black. I'm like, okay, cool.
If you don't identify as Black, but or someone who I might be like, you're Black, and they're like, I'm Black. You're like, okay, if you identify as Black, let's go forward.
I mean, we did have a guy come in the shop once who got really angry because he lived in West Africa. He was white. I mean, there was no doubt about it that this was a white man, but he felt that because he lived in West Africa and felt an akin to African people, that we should stock his book. And I was like, that's not how we're measuring Blackness, sir.
That's not how this works.
Well, he probably has gotten invited to the cookout, so shoot, he should be in your bookstore too.
Yeah.
Okay, one more question I have. I'm curious. You said, okay, I'm going to do this for my friends and family. So, but it was still online so that your friends and family could access it. And that's how the man in Scotland found you.
Yeah.
Okay. When you were talking, it brought me back to my childhood. And the main Black bookstore that I would go to in Detroit, which I don't think exists anymore, is Shrine of the Madonna Books. And then I was thinking about the fact that you said earlier before we started recording, and I have a connection with this bookstore in New Orleans. I have on the shirt now. What's the bookstore in New Orleans?
So that is called Baldwin & Co.
Okay, Baldwin & Co.
I'm not biased at all, but it is the greatest bookshop in the United States. I'm not biased. It's not my friend, okay? I'm saying this completely impartially. All right? No matter where you live in America, this is the bookshop you should be frequenting.
but it made me curious as to whether there is some association or connection. Like, is there an association of Black bookstore owners that you're a part of? Is that how you met Baldwin and Company, or how
Oh, no, that would be cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would
Yeah,
be.
no, there is not. I took part in a program called Rise, which is funded by the European Union, and which connects booksellers with other booksellers around, predominantly supposed to be around the European Union. And so someone asked me to apply to Rise to go on to be part of this program. And on the program, they say to you, well, complete say which 3 countries in Europe you are happy to travel to. And so I filled in the form. It said 3 countries in Europe or the States, and the States that you're happy to travel to. And I wrote back and said, I cannot pick 3 countries in Europe because Europe, and this is earlier so this would have been this time last year I was applying, because the swing to the right wing is so severe in Europe that actually I wouldn't feel safe as a Black woman alone traveling around Italy, France, I mean, any of the Slovakian countries. You know, maybe if I was in a group, maybe, but certainly not by myself, and certainly not going into completely unknown territory. So I said, hey, no, I'm only picking the States because I've traveled to the States quite a lot. And I know, you know, generally kind of it's really interesting, you know, what is filtered through in the news. And so obviously I know that there are issues in the States around violence and around violence towards Black people. But the reality is the majority of people do go about their business on a day-to-day basis feeling safe. And so, and having traveled to the States quite a lot, I just like, no, you can send me to the States or nothing. And I thought they're never going to go for that. And I also said, and I'm only going to go to a shop that's owned by a Black person. So if it's not owned by a Black person, I don't want to go. Don't just send me to a shop. And I just thought they're never going to go for it. They're just going to think she just wanted a long haul flight, right? And they came back and said, yeah. And then said, look, there's a guy in New Orleans we'd love to connect you with. And I got to New Orleans. So DJ and I had chatted a couple of times. And I got to the bookshop. And I had traveled. My husband came along with me in the end, and my social media manager, who was also my daughter, came with me as well. And we got there, and I went in and said, "Hi, I'm Carolyn. I'm here to meet DJ." And they were like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "Oh, what? I've traveled a really long way." And then he turned up and said he forgot. He forgot we were coming from the UK. I mean, it was just like, this is crazy. But it was amazing because actually what happened was, because he had forgot, he's an incredible host. And if he had remembered, what he would have done is cleared his diary, made time to host us and stuff like that. And actually, I didn't want to be hosted. I wanted to shadow him and see what his day-to-day running the bookshop looked like. And he's an incredibly busy man. And so within like 10 minutes, he said, hi. Okay, I've got a Zoom meeting. You're all in on it. And I was like, great, fine. We're all in on it. You know, and so actually what I got to see was much more of the heart of the bookshop and what his life looks like, and how he functions. So, and within like 20 minutes, you know, you just meet someone, you're like, oh yeah, we're best friends forever, bro. This is it. Like, it's me and you all the way, you know. And so yeah, we've just become great friends, and we message each other regularly. We encourage each other. We share our ideas and concepts with each other and say, hey, I'm doing this. Have you thought about this? Could this translate? Yeah. So it's been incredible.
Wow, that's beautiful. Okay, one more thing. And this is something we started the conversation off camera, but you mentioned my commercial. Whenever my commercial goes out, if it has this image on it, then it won't go through this particular company. And it sort of brought to mind my understanding. Some people, when they look at the Detroit uprising in the 60s, there is a version of the story that says that there were a lot of attacks on the Black bookstores, and not just in Detroit, but throughout the United States. And so it kind of brought to mind this idea of attack of Black bookstores. I know you just said it's the image, but otherwise it goes through. But I'm wondering if you have any experience of feeling like there is some suppression or some some things that get in the way of you being able to connect with people and share information with people. And we talked a little bit about, the George Floyd, Martin, but anyway, yeah. So
in all honesty, your podcast is not long enough for me to tell you the stories. I would say to you, whether I don't know how far, again, news translates, but so over the summer, there have been a lot of riots and uprisings in the UK by the far right. Which, you will know this as Black women, that when these things happen, the first thing that the community says is, we told you this was going to happen. Why weren't you listening to us? And so there was a protest in Brighton. The far right had planned to meet literally 200 yards from my shop. And it was traumatic. I'm not going to lie. I'm pretty sturdy and I've put up with a lot of rubbish over the years. But, this was, I don't know, it hit me way closer to home, I think, than anything else ever has, really. And so we got a phone call on the Monday from an anti-fascist group saying, hey, look, we've got really good intel that the far right are coming to Brighton. They're organising quite big. And the meeting point's around the corner from the bookshop. And Brighton is a very white city. It's 85%, I think, 87% white. And the Black community, I think, is 2 point something of the makeup of the city. And we are the only business in Brighton at all that is visibly Black. So, we've got this big sign, and it's a massive sign outside the bookshop, it says Afrori Books of Black origin. And, say it loud, say it proud, right? And so we had this phone call from the Anti-Fascist League, and they were like, look, we want to put some people outside the shop. We're worried. We think you're going to be a target. And so I think my family would definitely love to have me committed to an insane asylum several times, I think, in my life, and this occasion being one of them. What other businesses in the area did was they closed, and I just felt that was absolutely not an option. And I felt for three things. One, I grew up in this country. I grew up in the 70s and 80s where we used to have to run from the fascists. Where someone would go, they used to be called the National Front. So we'd be kids and someone says, National Front are coming, leg it. And everyone has to run. And I'm not running. I'm 55. I'm done running. We finished with that. So one, I thought I'm not running. Two, I thought that these people are cowards. And if I want to make the shop a target, turn off the lights and let it be empty. And I had these images in my head of when I was a kid and the Brixton riots were going on, and there were other riots and uprisings of the aunties sitting down on chairs outside their businesses, just sitting, like, come get me, but I'm here. You'll come through me first. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to humanize this space. So we're going to keep the lights on. And we invited our customers to be part of a peaceful protest, peaceful presence, we called it. And customers were responding saying, hey, Carolyn, I'm there for you. I will be in the shop. And then the third one was that we have always, since the physical shop opened, we have always said that we are a safe space for Black people and their allies. And I felt that if at any time ever that this community needed a safe space, it was on that night. And so how am I saying we're a safe space? Oh, but by the way,
not tonight.
I went home. Like, that just felt so trash to me. So normally we close at 6, and the protesters were meeting from 5. And so I said, much to my family's just alarm, disgust, annoyance, my friends, the community, I said, we're staying open till 10. And then literally the phone was ringing. People from the community were like, Carolyn, please don't do this. Please close. And that really was like, it was an added burden for me because they weren't doing it out of any reason other than love. And I even had like the police community. I don't really know what her real role is, but the police community, who's a woman who we have a great relationship, and she came down to see me, and she told me 3 community leaders had called her and asked her to come and see me to tell me to close. And she made me laugh because she said, "You want me to tell Carolyn what to do?" That's never going to work. But actually, she was the only person when I told her, she said, "What's your plan?" So I told her my plan. And she said, "Why?" And I told her why. And she just looked at me. She's a woman from South Asia. And she looked at me and she went, "You're doing exactly the right thing. What do you need?" And it was, I honestly, that the relief I felt in that second was like, okay, because you can feel like you're going insane and like, am I just putting everyone at risk? Should I not be? You know, my landlord was calling me and saying, "Carolyn, please don't do this. Please close." You know, so yeah, so we stayed open. And it was absolutely the right thing to do. We stayed open we had between 8 and 50 people in the shop throughout the night. We had a guard literally of people of all nationalities just standing outside the shop with their arms crossed, like, come on then, you know? And actually, yeah, in overall terms, it was amazing. You know, the community were just like, we love this space. This is our space. Nobody's coming. Yeah, but that's kind of that's a kind of real surface obvious kind of thing that's happened, but we have people on a regular basis come into the shop, send us emails, tell us, we call them the opinionators, because they're the people who think that their opinion is far greater than any knowledge, science or understanding that any other human could ever have. So yeah, the opinionators come, they tell us their opinion, and we get the pleasure of saying, there's the door, get out. And for so many of them, they've been thrown out of anywhere in their lives, you know. So that's a shock to them. But yeah, those things are constant. And since the riots, whatever we want to call them, in the summer, we now have the police now come 2 to 3 times a week and just, "Are you okay? Is everything okay? Anything happen? Anyone said anything? Have you seen anything?" Which is kind of reassuring, not, because it makes me think, oh, you know something, and you know that this is not, you know, so that's not the end of kind of thing. But yeah, long answer, sorry.
Carolyn, I have a question, especially the story you just told us. If you had one word to describe the feeling of your space, what word would that be?
Home.
Home. I love it. I got some goosebumps off of that. I love it. So this is, I guess, the easy part of the interview. Do you have a favorite author?
I think that's like asking me to have a favorite child, and I have 3. No, I think that that it changes from day to day. So I read a phenomenal amount of books, as you can imagine. And so, you know, if you ask me today, what's my favorite book, it would be this. And then in an hour, it's just what's in my mind and what sits with me. There are authors that I have met and who are just phenomenal people. And I just, like, I love them so much. Like, there are authors that I've met that are just, they feel like old friends to me. So there's a guy who comes to my head at the moment called Yomi Sade. And he's a poet. He's an incredible poet. But he's just a phenomenally nice person. He just is so kind. And so I think, you know, sometimes you read a book and then you meet an author in any, not just authors, but, you know, across the board, you meet your heroes, right? And you're like, please don't disappoint me. Please don't disappoint me.
Right.
Yes, last night I did an interview with Diane Abbott. And Diane is the first female Black MP. And she's been in Parliament for 37 years. She's like a massive hero. Just to Black women across this country, she's a massive hero, and beyond Black women, really. And even, I mean, she's not in our what we call constituency, so nobody in Brighton can vote for Diane. She's not near us, you know. But even last night, I said to the audience, Diane feels like RMP, right? And everyone was like, yeah, 100%, she's our girl, you know? And so she's the first time I was ever nervous about meeting an author. I was so excited and pumped, and I'm going to meet Diane, and I'm going to be talking to Diane, and me and Diane, you know, and I was really like that. And just anybody who knew me was just like, Carolyn, you okay? I'm like, yeah. And she's in her 70s. And I spent ages on Tuesday saying to like my daughters and some of people that were in the shop, so like I have to call her Auntie Diane, right? I can't just be like, hey, Diane. I can't be out there just be Diane in her, right? That can't be a thing. Can't just Diane people, you know? And they were like, okay, Carolyn, I think it's cool. I was like, no, it's not cool. It's Auntie Diane. And so I did last night, you know, when she arrived, I said, look, I just can't. Like I can feel the cuff coming for the back of my head if I dared just go, hello, Diane. You know, somebody's gonna slap the back of my head and say what were you saying? What? No, where's your manners? So I said, I'm you know, Auntie Diane. She said, that's okay. And then I was like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm losing my mind another way. But it was fun. And like even today, people coming in the shop and they're saying, oh, I loved you call her Auntie Diane. Because this woman, if you get a chance, Google her. She, the European, whatever, legislator, whatever, have done surveys, like so many people have done surveys on it, and she receives more hate mail than any British MP in history. History. Last year, a businessman publicly said that she made him hate all Black women and she should be shot. And that businessman was a major donor to the Conservative Party, and no action was taken against him at all because she is considered a free target, you know? And actually, but for me, you know, and I said this to her last night, what he did is he scuppered himself, because what actually happened was the community rose up and went, no, she should be loved. And we love her. And people, just thousands of people went and stood outside the town hall that's in her constituency, just holding up banners saying, we love you, Diane. You know, and she came out and it was incredible, you know, it's incredible. And the love for her. And so I said to her last night, actually, Diane, I think you're Britain's most loved MP. It's just that some idiots don't know it. And the audience were like, you know, so yeah, but sorry, the question was favourite author. No. But today,
I totally
Diane Abbott.
I totally understand, because I don't have one either. I have, like you said, it depends on the time, you know, it changes over time and the day and depending on what I just read. So, but I still like to ask the question. And do you have a favorite genre though? Just curious.
I definitely lean towards fantasy. It would definitely be like kind of an easy go-to for me. But I think that the bookshop has opened up stuff that I would never have considered reading before. I never read poetry, like never read poetry at all. And then I heard someone on the radio just say like 4 lines from a poet by a woman called Warsan Shire. She now lives in LA, in fact. And so there's one of my customers is a poet, and I said, hey, I just heard this line on the radio yesterday. And she was, oh yeah, that's Warsan Shire. I was like, what? She said, yeah, that's a poet. So she got a book. She went, yeah. So I ordered the book for the store, and then kind of it's like, this is incredible. This is amazing. And then so our poetry collection has really grown and grown over the years. And that has meant that more poets come in and we run more poet events. And I I'm opening up Blackness and Black community to myself as well as to others, because I realized that my experience of poetry was old white men going, I wander lonely as a cloud.
Yeah.
Right? And actually, what I'm surrounded by now are these incredible radical poets telling stories, particularly about Black Britishness and the Black British experience. And it's just like, whew, okay, you know, so it's very rare that we get a poetry event where I am not sitting with my mouth hanging open or the tears flowing. One of the two is going to happen. So yeah, fantasy is definitely like my go-to, and predominantly because I think that you can tell stories in fantasy and reach people in ways that you can't do through standard drama and narratives. You know, so you can talk about racism and then people are like, this is incredible. And like, yeah, you know, it's about racism. They're like, oh my gosh.
Right.
Oh yeah. You know, so yeah, I love that stuff. But yeah, it's opened up a lot of stuff. I wasn't a big fan of autobiographies and memoirs. And Diane's memoir has blown me out of the water. It's just incredible. And it's like, maybe I do like this stuff. So I'm constantly discovering new genres, new stuff, and just being like, oh, wow, you know, I've led a sheltered life and I didn't even know it.
Okay. I saw on your website that you have a lot of hard to find books on your shelves. Can you tell us one of what you think are your best acquisitions?
Oh, that's a good question. Man, no one's ever asked me that before. I don't know. I mean, it's really hard to fathom how bad publishing in the UK is for Black authors. And so, like, maybe 10 to 15% of what is in our shop is available in other bookshops, in traditional bookshops. And so there's so much of our stuff that people have just never heard of, never, like, who's that? And so, yeah, I mean, there's a lot. There's a book in the shop by a guy called Bernard Mensa. And the book, it's a children's book, a children's picture book, and it's called Rainy Day Zoo. And it is self-published. The standard and quality of it is beyond the realm. Like you wouldn't even believe that this was self-published. It's our best-selling book over the last 4 years. We sell it continually. Most of our books we order like in 2s or 3s. And when we order from Bernard, we order 20s and 30s because it will sell. And so I think maybe that, because it isn't anywhere else. I have never seen it in another bookshop. I kind of constantly talk to Bernard. He can't even get it in the wholesalers because, you know, it just doesn't fit. I don't know why it doesn't fit. So that's a big win for me. And then there are other books like there's a book by an American author, Bethan and something. It's a woman and her husband, and they create these photographic books. The first one's called Glory. The second one's called Crowned. I feel like her name's like Allcourt or Alan Court or something like that. But the book's really hard to get hold of here. And I found it and I fell in love with this book. And so I bought one and I had it right next to the till because I just kept looking at it because it's so stunning. And I often talk about this book and say, this book could end racism, because if everybody had this book on their coffee table, you know, when someone says something negative about Blackness or Black children, they go, no, hey, look at this book. Look at this.
The one that's crowned, it's about their hair.
No, it's about it. Crowned is it's a photographic book, but Crowned is fairy tales, and then they've used this modern creative photography to create these just incredible images. I mean, the artwork and the makeup is phenomenal.
Okay.
And so I often say, yeah, if people saw this book and saw this celebration of Black children, nobody would be racist ever again, because they'd be like, no, look here is beauty. Here are these amazing things. Anyway, so we ordered Crown, we ordered Glory, and then it went. Customer came in, bought it, and then we have to wait weeks and weeks and weeks for the wholesaler to get it back in again. And this was the pattern for 18, maybe 20, 22 months. And then a customer came in and bought it, And I was like, oh, darn, I haven't checked to make sure the wholesaler's got another one. Oh, I hope I don't have to wait months again, because they only have had one on their shelf. And the wholesaler has like, 25 warehouses full of books. And I looked and they had 5 on their shelf. And I just like, yes, come on. Yes, that's right. We did that, because I knew it's because we kept ordering it, kept pushing. And the wholesaler was like, oh, this is selling. Let's get more. And so I take those things, and there are a few books like that where we have seen publishers do reprints because we kept pushing and reordering, and wholesalers bring in stock, because this, myth across the world, right, that Black books don't sell,
Right.
and that Black books are for Black people. So Black authors write for Black people. And I do talks around the country, and I do at the conference 2 years ago, and then this year again, I will talk about why we have a Black bookshop, blah, blah, blah. And every single time, booksellers come up to me and say, oh, I would sell books by Black authors, but, I live in a little village and there are no Black people there. And I answer and go, I live in Brighton. There's no Black people there either. 70% of my customers are white, and they are buying books by Black authors because that's all I sell. And so it's just, constantly trying to break and destroy these narratives that are Black books, Black people, Black trauma, Black people, Black audiences. I can't even remember what the question was.
No, you answered it. You answered it.
Right.
You answered it.
Good.
So I wanted you to talk to us about some of the work you do in the community, because I love when people understand that they have a greater responsibility, especially to the community in which they find themselves. And it tells me something not only about your store, but about you and what is important to you. So I just wanted you to tell the audience some about the work that you do in the community.
So in the last couple of months, I've started to say that the bookshop's a front. You know what front is? You say front?
Yes.
I'm like, not for criminal activity. But the thing is about books is once you sell books, you can do anything, because everything is connected to a book, right? If someone says to me, well, I love wheels, I'm like, great, I'll find you a book about wheels. We'll do a wheel event. Let's do an event on wheels, because I'll find a book. And now this becomes a bookshop event, right?
Right.
So we do lots of things, and I probably won't remember them all. But the things that come to mind is we do hair education. We run hair education workshops. And they are workshops. They are predominantly attended by, but not exclusively for, predominantly attended by parents who have got mixed heritage children, and carers. So there's lots of Black children in the care system, lots of Black children who are living with grandparents that are white or don't share their heritage, and just don't know how to look after curly textured hair. So we run these hair workshops, and we just bring children in, and it's probably like, I don't know, everything I say it's the highlight, but it's the highlight. It's one of the, but it's the highlight of what I do, because it's you watch someone's life change in real time. I literally watch children walk into a room, and I don't mean like in what's the word? Figuratively, literally children walking with their heads hung down. They don't want to be in that space. They don't want anyone to talk about their hair. They're ashamed of their hair. They're ashamed of who they are. And they walk in, not talking to anybody. Their whole body language is like, there's anger, there's sadness. And then 3 hours later, they walk out, heads held high, laughing, exchanging numbers. So this started, I'll tell you this because long answers, always long answers with me. This started because a child came into my shop, and I had never seen a child with hair like that before. Her hair was matted to her head. She was a mixed race child, but she had very Afro textured hair. And I thought, oh my gosh, what do I do? right? What do I do now? She's with her white mom. I can't say to a person in my shop I've never met before, hey, look, what the heck is going on with the kid's hair? That's not helpful. So I was like, Lord, yeah, saw something out here. And then the mum picked up this book, which was like hairstyles and how to put clips in your hair. And this kid had this awful hair with this one plastic bow clipped in to the front of her head. And I wanted to cry. It was so awful. And so mum picked up this book and she said to the daughter, oh, look at this. Look how she's got clips in her hair. There was nothing like this child in the picture. Her hair was plaited, you know, she had like cane row going on. And so I said to mum, oh, are you interested in hair things? And the mum burst into tears. She just started crying. She said, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to look after her hair. I took her to a hairdresser and the hairdresser plaited her hair and it was so painful. The child is screaming. She never wants to go again. You know, I don't know what to do. What should I do? I had no idea what to do either. And I said, me and my big mouth, I'm going to fix this. I said, we'll run a workshop so you can learn what to do. I didn't know how to run a workshop. I didn't know who I was going to ask, but I was like, no, this can't be. This can't be. This is a safe space. This doesn't feel safe. This doesn't feel good. This child doesn't feel happy in my space. And so I just reached out. I found an expert, somebody who kind of did that sort of thing. And then I threw it out to the community and everybody was like, oh, I want a space, I want a space, I want a space. And that child went to that workshop. Her hair was so bad that they couldn't fix it in that workshop. But they just showed mum, took a little tiny section at the back, showed mum how to moisturize it, products to use, how to just put it in twists. Really simple, you know. The child came in 3 days later and was like, Carolyn, look at my hair. She said, and Carolyn, guess what happened? Even the head teacher came up to me, Carolyn, and said, your hair is beautiful. And I was like, we have to do this again. There's more people out there. So we just keep doing it. And that's probably how most things happen. So we do hair education workshops. We run this other thing called the Art Club. And again, a kid came in, that's a whole other story. But we run what we call the Anti-Racist Kids Club. And so we go into schools and run 6 workshops over 6 weeks, teaching children, giving children the language to make a decision to be anti-racist. So we're just going, hey, this is what racist looks like. This is what non-racist look like. Same as racist, really. And this is what anti-racist look like. You decide, what do you want to do? How does that sit for you? Where do you want to be? And I mean, the demand for that far outstrips what I can do. Because it's just me running those workshops, and I usually have an assistant. So I've got a waiting list of schools who are just like, can you come to me? Can you come to me? And again, you know, parents, I had a parent come up to me. I was actually at my niece's open day for her school. And a parent tapped me on the shoulder. We were watching like a dance thing. And she said, excuse me, are you Carolyn? And I was like, yeah, oh, darn, what have I done? And she said, oh, my daughter's doing your anti-racist club. Yeah. Okay. And she said, incredible. Thank you so much. She's a white mum. Incredible. She said, we have had the most amazing conversations at dinner because of the things that you're telling her and she's coming home with. And she said, it's been amazing. It's challenged us as a family. We are like re-looking at our language, at our books, at how we speak, she said, it's life-changing. Thank you. And I was like, oh, I was having a bad day. Now I'm going to go in the corner and cry. But yeah, so it works. That kind of, we're doing it and it works. We run author events, we run book clubs, other stuff, things. Oh, we send books to prisons.
I just wanted our listeners to just hear some of the creative problem-solving type of programming that you're doing in the community, because, you know, sometimes people don't know what to do and they hear something and they say, oh, we could probably do that, or we could figure out how
Absolutely.
to do that. Yes, yes. So what is the Open Minds Project?
Yeah, so Open Minds is a charity we work with from when the bookshop opened, and Open Minds basically give books to schools to ensure that schools' bookshelves are diverse. And so we've worked with them kind of from the offset. We helped them set up a teacher training program, because one of the things that I found was that we can put books on shelves, but they have to stay on the shelf unless the teacher pulls it off the shelf and says, hey, class, let's talk about, hey, have you looked at that? And what we found over and over is that teachers like, well, I don't know how to use that book. I don't know, what would I do with that? I don't know. And so Open Minds just started running a book club for teachers, and we would give them a list of books, and then they just run training and help teachers create lesson plans around books. And again, incredible results, because we're hearing from schools who are saying, hey, can we put in a class order for that book? Or, you know, we're going to schools to do anti-racist training, and schools are telling us, oh yeah, last year we picked Benjamin Zephaniah instead of, I don't know, somebody else.
I asked specifically about that project because I'm sure you know, in the States, there's so many states that have banned books and taken them off school shelves and that sort of thing. So to hear the opposite going on is quite hopeful. I'm gonna use that word that you used to describe your space, and it's very inspirational. And again, I'm hoping it can give other bookstores ideas, because in some ways, our children, we have a lot of work to do, because so many things are getting rolled back. And so it's going to be on parents and teachers. I know that when curricula get changed and things get banned, it's much more difficult, because now you have the politics and people risking their jobs because they just want to teach something. But I know that we have to keep this conversation going and in the forefront as writers and authors and bookstore proprietors about the importance of books and how books and reading change people and can change people and educate people. So I really thank you for sharing about the Open Minds Project. And something else I want to ask, because we always ask, is what does writing while Black mean to you?
That's a good question. I think it's be your best self. I think that I go to parties, and people say to me, oh, hi, weddings, party, whatever. What do you do? And I have a variety of answers, because I love just unnerving people. But one of my answers is, oh, hi, I'm Carolyn. What do you do? Well, they say, what do you do for a living? And I say, oh, I'm changing the world. And I just pause, and they look at me, because now they have to ask the next question, right? How? So now they don't get to ask me just what do I do, but how? And so I talk about the power of books. I talk about changing narratives. And I give them a nice big spiel about the bookshop, and, you know, the inequality and the lack of equity in publishing and all of those things. And then I say, so that's how I'm changing the world. And guess what? This morning when I woke up, I didn't have a superpower. So I'm doing this just out of my plain old mortal strength. What are you doing? Because I want people to remember that actually it's not, I haven't got superpower. I didn't, you know, I haven't got an extra hour in the day. I do this because I love my community and because I want to see change. And I do this because I'm a Black woman, and that I'm always a Black woman. No matter what day of the week, no matter how I wake up, I'm a Black woman. And I'm always seen as a Black woman, right? Intersectionality doesn't really apply to Black people. I'm a Black woman before I'm anything else. you know, so I could have other needs, I could have other things going on, but what the world sees is just my blackness. And so that's fine, but I will utilize that, and I will be a Black woman 24/7. I will be a Black woman. I'll be the blackest of Black women. And that means I will Black morning till night. So whatever I'm doing, I'm looking at it through the lens. I'm not allowing myself to, I guess, be pulled into the white gaze, because we're colonized, and we have been affected by these things over and over again. And so I'm not going to allow myself to do that, because I'm going to look and go, well, hold on a minute, just pause. What about my community? How's that impacting the people that I have said I want to serve and love and look after? So yeah, being my blackest Black self, right, while Black.
That might be the best answer we've gotten.
I have a couple. I just want to throw out. I saw on Ayoka's list the yoga workshops for women, and it reminded me of Source Booksellers and going and doing chair yoga there, and also Dr. Gail Parker's restorative yoga for race-based trauma. I don't know if we have time to jump into that, but also I wanted to know about what you love most about Afrori Books, and what is your greatest challenge?
I mean, I love yoga. Our Women of Color yoga is an incredible space. It's the most anyway, it's life-changing, and it has been for me. When you go through a trauma and you sit in a space, when you go for a terrible day and you sit in a space, and before yoga starts, Indy, the woman who leads it, says, hey, does anyone want to share something? And you just go, this. And I always remember particularly this one day when the troops were pulling out of Iraq, and our hearts were bleeding for these women who were being abandoned. And there was no space to talk about it. Nobody could understand why, and that felt like a personal hurt. And I sat in that yoga group, and every single woman said that's what was on their heart. And we just sat, and it just was incredible. And there's so much restoration in those spaces. So that's my yoga thing. What I love about Afrori Books is the people. I'm an extrovert, can you tell? I am a fully fledged, I've got certificates, a degree in extrovertism. So people, I love the people. I love that people confuse the bookshop with therapy. And they come and they tell me their stories. I've spent all morning, literally this morning, just listening to customers telling me the massive things going on in their lives, and just having an opportunity. I'm a Christian, so having the opportunity to bring some prayer and just say, hey, I'm thinking of you and I love you, and being able to encourage people all the time. What an amazing privilege that is, to hear those stories and know that people trust me to share those stories with me is incredible. Last night there were 200 people at the book event, and I stood up and I looked across the room, and I was, doing an introduction, and I looked at and I said, okay, most of you are family. And that's just like, whoa, I get to say that, right? There were new faces in there I'd never seen, but I'm like, most of you are family. So you know how this works, right? We're here as family, we're here for Diane, here for Auntie Diane, blah, blah, blah. And so, yeah, I love that. The biggest challenge is time and money, right? Always. I mean, we have an incredible product, okay, in the bookshop and in the stuff we do, but actually not enough people know about it. If more people knew, then more people would buy, then we'd have more money, and we'd be able to do more of the things. We'd be able to employ more people to do more of the things, because I still only got those dry old 24 hours in a day. I have pleaded for more, and they are not coming. And so someone said to me the other day, oh, how do you do everything? How do you do everything and not burn out? I was doing a talk, and I said, firstly, I don't do everything. There are all these things that are sitting on the back burner, and they are frustrating me because I haven't got the capacity to pick them up. There are so many projects that I'm like, oh, I want to run with this, and I can't, because then I'd have to drop something else. And when they said to me about burnout, I said, never assume that you know what burnout looks like, because I burn out and then I rise back up again. because I love what I do, but I would rather not do the burnout. That's the truth, because that hurts. I'd rather just be more even keel. But yeah, we're not there. One day.
Okay, and then one more thing. You started with 100 books. And where is your collection, your catalog at now? And do you feel like constrained in that as well?
No restraints at all. If you are a Black author and your book is available on through the wholesalers, 100% your book is going on my website. No questions asked. We have, I think, 4,000 titles in the bookshop at the moment in the online store, with another 1,100 currently waiting to be added. I just haven't had staff all the time, because every day that another book comes out, right? Or a customer comes in and says, hey, can you order this for me? And I'm like, I've never even heard of it. What is that? And you order that one thing for them, and then you go down the rabbit hole and discover 10 other books. So yeah, no restraints. There is no end. Our deal with the warehouse means that we can just keep going. In the physical store, slightly different, because there is literally a physical space. And we are kind of looking at what serves the people that walk into the shop. But yeah.
And I'm, forgive my ignorance, when you say whatever wholesaler, who are the wholesalers?
The wholesaler is Gardeners. So they are the wholesaler for the UK for booksellers.
Remember, she said there's one.
Right. Which has made me feel a little anxious, but I wanted to leave that alone. But
no. I mean, anyone who's listening, who is writing, and you want to get your book into the UK, the hardest, but the easiest way to get it in is through Gardeners, because there are 1,100 bookshops in the UK, and they all use the same wholesalers. So you are marketed to 1,100 bookshops. Now, getting your book into Gardeners, that's not easy. And I'm meeting with them again, I think, in a couple of weeks, because I keep asking them to be transparent and tell me what the process is, but they won't tell me. So I'm hoping, we're putting pressure on them from other places. I'm hoping eventually they'll tell me, so we can put on our website and say, this is how you do it.
Okay. I know, just as a self-published author, I do know that if you go through Ingram, I know Ingram has, and probably others do, they have some sort of global distribution component to their distribution. And so I see the different, on the back end, on the administrative end, I can see the different countries that my book can go to. And one of them is the UK, but I don't know how all that works, only to say that I know that there is a global piece to most of these distributors that are in the United States. Yeah. I just, how that works.
Yeah.
So can you get Is Love at Second Sight at your store? Can you get it? Are you in their system, Ayoka? Is Ayoka in their system?
I don't know.
Okay.
Checked.
Okay.
Well, I know I have a girlfriend that moved to London maybe 6 months ago, and she was trying to buy Love at Second Sight from Amazon, and she said they wouldn't deliver to her. No idea. So I told her to try bookshop.org and see if she had better luck. But that was just weird to me, that they wouldn't deliver where she was, or I don't know what that was about. She has the book now.
Goodbye. Thank you so much.
Carolynn, I am so serious when I say I want to have you back on. So
I would love to come back.
Okay, let's make that happen. And I'm going to put all the links to all of the things. We're a little engine that could, in our sphere of influence, we're going to push Afrori Books.
Yay.
Thank you very much. It's been lovely talking to you both.
Absolutely.